How you doing? This is Sean McVeigh with Sean's Outdoor Adventures. Today I am at Brush Mountain Archery in Spring Mills, Pennsylvania, and I am going over the APA Mamba 34TF. Now, last year is the first time I laid hands on an APA bow at the Great American Outdoor Show, and I have to say I was very impressed with some of the thought that they have put into these bows. I'm just going to go over some of them here with you. I'm going to start up here at the top. They have a little hook on here for hanging your bow, and it's nice because when you go to take it off, you don't have to, fight through and worry about your quiver, if your quiver's on there, or your string. So just you can take it right off and go with it. I also like the way they have the handle. It's actually very comfortable for carrying. Like if you're walking in, that's just a comfortable feel for holding it. And it's thinner, like, with your grip being as fat as it is, I actually find I have to switch hands a lot because it gets uncomfortable after a while, or I carry it with the string. But having that skinnier little grip, that's more comfortable. I think I'd be able to carry it a little farther, without switching hands on that. I also like there's a little groove in here for helping you make sure that your arrow is square on there. There's some neat things built into the bow right here that I want to talk about that I just was really impressed with when I saw it. So one, they have a maple leaf, it's a Canadian manufacturer, but it's actually a broadhead wrench. And there's also a little part for turning your nocks. And there's a broadhead sharpener built right into the bow. And I personally like to use fixed blade broadheads. So I think with a fixed blade, that's particularly helpful. And this little pin right here comes out, and you can actually field press the bow to work on it right in the field if you needed to, which I think is a great idea. So another thing too that I noticed right when I touched the bow is it has this soft finish to it. They're calling it soft touch finish, and it really does feel nice. And I've never picked up a bow in this year or in recent years that has had that nice feel to it. So I definitely would encourage you to pick one of these up and just hold it just to get a feel. It does have a solid limb, but it also has a double yoke system. So I think that I always like the double yoke system because if you want to manipulate for cam lean, it's easy to do that. So let's go ahead and shoot the bow through the chronograph, and we're going to start off at 70 pounds. I'm going to shoot a 350 grain arrow, a 450 grain arrow, and a 550 grain arrow, and we'll just see what we come up with. 350 grain arrow to begin with. For the back wall, it's a little bit of a soft back wall. If that's something you like, it's definitely got that feel for it. I would say, about a 5 or 6 out of 10 as far as how soft it is compared to a super solid back wall. And it does come off of the back wall fairly easy. Again, about a 5 or 6 out of 10. So some bows you feel like you have to push your hand forward. Some it comes off a little easier. So this is one of the ones that comes off a little easier. So what I'm doing, 65 pounds. Back wall feels the same, just about. I was trying to get to the side of it too. All right, I am back at the home office, if you want to call it that. I've got my data up over here as far as what the speeds were and everything. I'm going to go over that now. And one thing I just want to say is, out of all the bows that I have ever handled, I would say that the APA bows are the most thought out bows for a rugged hunter that I've ever really experienced. I mean, having the bow press ability built in with that little peg, which I didn't actually do while I was there, and I realized it after I got home. But with that little peg I showed you in the beginning of the video, you pull that out and you put your foot in the hand grip that I showed you as well, and you pull on the bowstring a little bit and you slide that peg in the cam by the limb. And then as you let down on the string, that peg goes into the limb and the string becomes limp. And you could do some kind of work on the bow, on the fly, whatever. And I will not recommend you do what I'm about to say, but when I was growing up, I used to do that with a screwdriver, a Phillips head screwdriver. I'd sit on the floor, pull the bow back a little bit, and stick the screwdriver in the cam and let down and work on the bow just a little bit and then do it. And I always hated doing it, but sometimes there was emergencies where I had to. And having that built into the bow was pretty nice. So having the broadhead wrench built right, the broadhead wrench, but also the broadhead sharpener built right in. I mean, that's something that if you're a long distance hunter like I am, sometimes I'm a mile or two deep in the woods, just having that there if you need it is really nice. And I would say that I didn't get to experience this bow with the limb stops. For an additional $100, you can purchase limb stops to go onto the cam, and I've never had a chance to shoot one of these with that. If with the limb stops you could create a valley where the bow doesn't come off the back wall as easily, I think this would be my bow of choice for hunting. But with my own personality and my own preferences, the way the back wall is on this bow is what, that's the stopping factor for me. The back wall is a little bit soft with the cable or string stops, and it comes off the back wall a little easier than my liking. But for some people, that's not an issue, and even for some like back tension shooters, they prefer that. So let me go over the data now. And again, I do think if you have the chance to try this bow, it's certainly worth it. I enjoyed the bow. And there's a couple things I want to point out as I go through the data. So first of all, let's look at when shooting it at 70 pounds. The speed came in at 334 feet per second with the 350 grain arrow. The decibel, now this is an important thing I want to point out. The decibel reading came in at 82.6. However, that's not necessarily accurate to the bow. And this is one of the reasons why I incorporated the control bow this year, is because in this particular shop, it's really tight. I mean, the target was 8 to 10 feet away from where I was shooting. And what happens in that situation is the arrow hitting the target in a lot of situations like that is louder than the sound of the bow going off. So if we look at the control bow, in my control environment, the decibel reading was 78 decibels. On site here was 81.7. And the other locations where I've done testing where the target is like 20, 25 yards away from where I'm doing the shooting, all of the decibel meter readings have been right around 78 for the control bow. What this means with 81.7 is that the sound of the arrow hitting the target, or the sound of the room being so tight, it caused the sound to register louder. So to be fair to these numbers, we would really want to drop off about 3 decibels. So if we go back over to this reading, 82.6 or right around 83, it's going to be more like 79.4 or right around there. So just so you know, when we look at those, that's why I did the control bow this year. And because of this location, the readings for that came in higher than what I think the bow would be producing on its own, just looking at the control bow. So let's look down, 295 feet per second for 450 grain arrow, and then 273 feet per second for the 550 grain arrow. Now let's look down at the bow as it was set up at 65 pound pull. The speeds that were coming in were 328 feet per second for the 325 grain arrow, 291 feet per second for 425 grain arrow, and 264 feet per second at the 525. And of course we have our decibel meter readings here and our vibration meter readings as well. Now I didn't touch on the vibration meter readings, but we can go down that column real quick. So back up at 70 pound pull, at the 350 grain arrows, we were around 18, then to 15, then to 12, and looking down to 65 pounds, it was 14, came in a little higher, 15, and then 11. And I just want to say, I bought this somewhat expensive vibration meter just to try to get some data. It's one thing to say that it has a dead in the hand feel, but I was trying to get a number. What I've discovered though in the testing, and I'll be mentioning this in other videos just for clarity, is the slightest variation in the way you're gripping a bow can absorb more vibration than from one shot to the next. and then your meter, your reading on the meter is a little different. So take those vibration meter readings with a grain of salt. I was just trying to provide some data, but I don't know that it's all that helpful for when we're doing these comparisons, because there can be so many variations just from the way the bows grip from one shot to the next. So that is the summary of the data for the Mamba, and I really liked the APA bow. There's not a lot of places that are carrying them in the US right now, but if you can find one and get a chance to shoot it, definitely check it out. I mean, even the paint finish on that bow, it's just a really neat feel to it. Like, you put it in your hand, you're like, wow, it really stands out to you. So congratulations, APA. I'm proud of your bow. If you make some changes to the back wall, then I might be knocking on the door and saying, hey, I want to get an APA bow. So everyone, get out there and shoot them, see what you like, see what your preferences are. And until then, until the next video, take care and God bless.